Welcome to CU Talks, the voice of the Conservative Union. Conversation with real people from real places in America, not DC and not the media. My name is Leslie, and I'm here with Nikos and Antonio to bring you our thoughts on current events with a conservative and optimistic spin. Today we wanted to talk about the celebration of mediocrity. Not that we celebrate mediocrity, but it seems that the culture at large has begun to celebrate mediocrity rather than when I was young, we celebrated excellence and thought that mediocrity was not good enough. And now it seems that that's our goal or something. And we're seeing it in government, certainly, because, I mean, if you compare our current level of government officials to the statesmen that we have had in the past, in previous generations, they don't even begin to compare, even close. And certainly it goes to areas where we're directly involved with education and the media and popular culture. It's kind of everywhere. And we wanted to talk about that and see if maybe we can find some way around it, or I don't know if we can find a way around it. I think we wanted to just talk about our personal experiences and some of the statistics that we're seeing with mediocrity. And I think, was it Antonio or Nikos that found these great articles, like this one from Michelle Rhee and these other ones? Which one of you was that?
I would love to take the credit for it, but I'm an honest person. I'm not left wing, so I would have to give it to Nicholas.
Oh, snap. Oh.
Was he implying? Never mind. He was saying that he's an honest person, just like the other two are.
And he sent it out of the park. Home run.
Yeah. So it was Nikos that found this article by Michelle Rhee. Isn't she was in charge of the Washington, D.C. schools, and now she's national something or other? I'm embarrassed that I don't know this.
I don't remember. I don't remember what he was. What she was.
She was the one that was in D.C., correct?
Yeah. She was like our national Secretary of Education or something, wasn't she? Oh my God! So mediocrity. Here we are.
Yes, no, right?
Oh, good Lord!
I remember when she first got the job, and she was going up to the classroom, figuring out what was going on with the school before she made any changes. And she noticed that the kids was coming to school. They'll go to the first period class, second period class, and just leave. And
Really?
she would question the students, why are you leaving? And the students would tell her, well, we like those teachers. We don't like the other teachers, so we're done. And they just left.
Well, what? They would just, but you're not allowed to.
They just left. The kids, they didn't care. They only went to the classes they wanted to go to. Every other class, they just didn't go to. And when she started making changes, she started firing people. People who wasn't up to snuff, she just started firing them. And they was praising her when she first got the job, but as soon as she started firing teachers, they treated her like she was the devil.
Yeah, of course,
because that's the union, and you don't touch the union, right?
Exactly. It's the union. And surprisingly enough, if you have bad apples everywhere, all right? I mean, it's part of our life. You have good people, you have bad people everywhere, from criminals to non-criminals or something like that. If you like the generalization, I'm not specifically saying about anything. So you have good people and bad people in every profession. And education and teachers are basically not exempt from that. You will have teachers that would engage the kids, that would relay the message very clearly, that would challenge the kids to basically use their brains. And then you will have teachers who are more interested in their salary rather than the service that they're offering the young generation. You also have, and we've seen this in the news last year quite a lot, you have teachers that basically follow a particular political agenda, and they take no prisoners in their classroom. So if you do not follow the political agenda, it's not going to happen. What comes to mind was this lady that basically flipped out on a teacher on a student when she was telling him that you know, you should respect our president and all that stuff. He's our president, blah blah blah. Kind of like the, you know, the Messiah has come, and the
Right.
kid actually had the nerve or the courage, if you like it, turn around and say, you know, it's the First Amendment. We can say anything we want. You were basically blaming Bush for everything under the sun, and I think that Obama has not, President Obama, sorry, hasn't done anything good. And she just went ballistic. The bad thing about that lady was that it was caught on a smartphone, and it went through the internet rounds, and this kid ended up in some shows and all that stuff. Uh, did something happen to this teacher? Nope, because of the union. Was she wrong? In my view, absolutely yes. If no matter what your political beliefs are, you should convey a neutral message to the children. I mean, you cannot turn around and tell them 1 plus 1 makes 11, right? You have to tell them 1 plus 1 makes 2. It's simple. But sadly, a lot of our teachers are not up to par. And because of the unions,
You can't
we
fire them.
have
You can't get
nothing.
rid of
We have
them.
nothing to do. Yeah, we cannot do anything. And I truly believe that they contribute tremendously in the fact that our younger generation is being dumbed down,
Hmm.
and basically they're being taught to not recognize excellence and not applaud excellence, but just mediocrity. And by bringing mediocrity as you know, the norm, the awesome, the what I need to aspire to be, then you end up not having, you know, the innovators, the movers, the people that would sit down and look at a problem from 10 different angles and find an even better solution than what one has already conceived. So that is a problem.
Well, and I think some of these articles that we're looking at today are from, I don't know, December of this year, and they have there's rankings of America's education system, and there have been some numbers that I've seen just in the last couple of days too. Apparently, there's bunches of statistics about where our students rank in test scores, and then these other rankings are where America ranks as a compared to other nations in the world, and where we as a nation rank in the rest of the world is in the middle. Uh,
26, 20,
and
something like
we're and I believe we're moving down. I mean, we're not moving down rapidly, but we are dropping. And there doesn't seem to be a huge drive to fix that. And that's what's depressing, is that, you know, as in this article by Michelle Rhee, and I looked her up on Wikipedia, and she was the chancellor of the D.C. school system, and she was very much pro vouchers, by the way. But she's concerned, you know, the most horrible thing is that our complacency around fixing them, and that's what I'm seeing too, and that's what drives me crazy, is we're in the middle of the pack and people seem okay with that. You know, we don't accept being in the middle of the pack on you know, in the Olympics, as she used the Olympics as an example, and we wouldn't be happy with a foreign high-tech company usurping Apple's market position. You know, we're proud of a lot of things about America, but when it comes to education, we're like, oh well, we're middle of the pack, I guess that's good enough. And that's just that kind of complacency is what means we're not going to really do the things necessary to get it fixed.
that.
Because, you know, when the Russians decided to head to the moon, we decided, you're not going to be the first ones on the moon. And we sacrificed what needed to be sacrificed, and we pushed hard, and we did what needed to be done so that we would beat them there. And it wasn't just, you know, pride of place. It was also Kennedy's way of fighting the, you know, the communist threat. But
Yeah.
so it was national security. There were a whole bunch of things around that. But we as a nation, when I've been throughout my lifetime, we've always seen ourselves as the leading nation of the free world, the best of the best. And if you want it done well, you get an American to do it. And if you want it done really well, you get a Texan. But that was just my thing. Whee! Had to do it. Had to do it. But the way I grew up was believing that America is the best and everybody wants to be like us, and we're happy to teach everyone else how to be like us because we want everybody else to succeed along with us, and we're up at the top and we want to pull everybody up along with us. And what's happened over the last decade or two is more of the let's just calm down and everybody be equal, and the other countries are just as good, and let's all sink down to their level, and we can all be equal by us sinking down to their level rather than bringing them up to ours. We've been content to sink down to theirs and just say, yeah, let's just all be calm and be in the middle and be mediocre. And that's it's devastatingly sad, but it does mean that we are going to lose pride of place in terms of medical innovation, and we've already done so. Medical and technological innovation, scientific discovery, space exploration. I mean, so many things we have accepted a middle place or even a losing position as a culture and as a society. And I'll be sitting at dinner with my college-age nephews and say something, and I'll use a word that's not a big fancy word, but they don't know what the word means. And it's a word that I've known since 6th grade or something. It's not really a difficult concept, but it's something that they don't know. They've never been exposed to it. And and they'll ask, and and we'll explain it, and they'll learn. But these are things that a mediocre education is what has been given to my nephews.
Right, and as of right now, there's no way to change it. Because the educational system is so big. How do you change something that massive? The bigger something is, the longer and slower it's gonna take to change it.
Yeah, it's too big to fail, right?
Right.
Yep.
But that's one of the reasons why we should shrink it. That is the perfect case for a smaller. Well, there shouldn't be a Department of Education, but while we got one, we should at least try to shrink it. Because in order to make our education more than mediocre like it is, it has to be small. If it's not small, we can't move it. We can't move up.
And it can't be, because what's needed for a particular school in the inner city, in Harlem, is different than the needs of suburban Los Angeles, because the students are different, their particular case their particular home situations are different. You need to focus on different things, and it's not because individuals have different capacity, although actually they do. And it's okay that the three of us here are all very smart people, but we each have different ways of learning and different capacity to learn and excel at different things. There are some topics I'm never going to be really great at because I'm not interested. I'm not going to really focus on it. My brain just doesn't really hold that information. I mean, if my living was based on my ability to identify cars, I'd die. Because to me, it's like, oh, that's a sedan type car. And that's really enough information. I don't need any more than that. But there are people who their brains are wired a different way, and they can look at a car and they'll know what particular year, make, and model it is, and that means they know exactly what kind of engine it has and all sorts of different, and what types of tires, because that's information that they're capable of learning, and I'm simply not. And you don't teach the two of us the exact same things. You don't score us the exact same way, and you don't teach us the exact same way. And so one set of federal standards, a la Common Core, that we're doing in this education thing,
Oh my God.
that's just going to be absolute failure. And then because it is such a failure, I think maybe, do you suppose maybe it's a self-preservation type of thing, that when the goals are something that no one can achieve, you realize that you're not going to achieve the goals, so you just have to accept mediocrity because otherwise you're a loser all the time.
But the way I see it is, they don't believe in equality of outcome. They want everybody to be equal, even if that means everybody has to be mediocre. We are equal, so they're happy. That's the way I see it.
This actually reminds me of something really interesting. And Formula One fans would actually find this kind of like close to home.
There's a reason I talked about cars, because you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you know it, right? All right, so disclaimer here, I'm a huge Ferrari fan. I've always been, always liked the red cars. And I do have some upstairs, although they are in something like a 1 to 12 scale. And I will
I was
never
about
have
to
the
say,
1
you
to
have an
1 scale.
entire Formula One car in your
Yeah,
living
right?
room? Awesome.
No. So back in the day, let's say 97, 98, it was kind of like the resurgence of Ferrari. Ferrari hadn't won a drivers' championship since 1979. So they were extremely hungry. They paid a ton of money to Michael Schumacher, who was at the time the best driver, and I really hope that he manages to recover from his accident, but that's a different story. So they hired him, they got the best designers, they got the best managers and all that stuff. 1998, they couldn't do it. 99, Schumacher broke his leg, they couldn't just do it. Then 2000 came the time that, you know, they managed to get the long coveted championship, right? But that did not stop there. 2001, 2002, 2003, they basically ruled the whole sport until 2004 came. All right. In that year, Michael Schumacher won 6 out of 6. And in the 7th race, he got bumped behind, and that's why he couldn't finish it. And he could potentially have won it. I mean, he was going for an insane streak. That particular year, Ferrari basically swept everything. I think they scored the largest amount of points for a team ever at the time, right? I think there might have been maybe one race that they didn't win, that Ferrari didn't win. Now, here's the interesting part, where I'm getting with this. For starters, everybody thought, you know what, it's a done deal. 2004 is gone. We're not going to be able to catch them. They are ways ahead, right? So let's start working on the 2005 car. However, the minute 2005 came, the rules that came into effect, the change of rules, were extremely questionable. And at times, they were very detrimental towards Ferrari. So Ferrari had to work a hell of a lot more in order to comply with the rules, and thus they had a handicap. So it reminds me of where I'm getting with this is that instead of the FIA, and this is the British FIA, right? That everything that revolves with Formula One is in Britain. Instead of the FIA turning around telling the other 7 teams, 6, 7 teams, whatever they were, you know what? We don't care. The sport might become unpopular. You have to catch them. We're losing as much money as you are because they get money from advertisement and all that stuff. A lot of people were not happy. All right. If you're not a Ferrari fan, of course, looking at 2 red cars disappearing in the distance and with no chance from the other people to catch them, it's not a happy scenario. So you will switch it off. So instead of the FIA turning around and saying, you know what, catch them, build a better car, do this, do that. Instead of doing that, they basically introduced rules to slow down Ferrari as much as possible, which they did, and then not reward excellence and bring them down to the 2nd and 3rd and 4th versus pushing the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th to catch up with the first one. So it's not something that we only see here.
Does this have any effect on Formula One's viewership or popularity?
Well, the people, the pure Ferrari fans did not like it, right? The ones that do not really care if the other cars are basically a minute behind, which is like an eternity in Formula One. Okay,
Hmm.
did not really care if Michael Schumacher lapped every single car apart from Rubens Barrichello, who was behind him, right? We did have races like those. I mean, I was ecstatic. I was just like over the top. You had people though that turned around and said, "Well, it's boring," and I understand their point of view. Okay, you watch it in order to obtain some entertainment. Now, once the rules changed, um, then you had the Ferrari fans complaining, "What the hell is going on?" Then you had the McLaren fans going, "You're sore losers." And then you had the Williams fans and Renault saying, "Well, you're sore losers because you cannot catch us up." And they did not realize the fact that, you know what, if we didn't have the change in the rule, where would you be? So instead of recognizing that somebody had a hand in this, in slowing down the leader, and so now we're basically following the second and third and fourth. We pushed technology back instead of forward. They saw it, okay, there's competition, it's great. Now, as the years went by, even to this year, they've implemented many rules in order to make the sport as popular as possible. Okay, and they have managed to do it. Some of the rules that have been implemented were great. Okay, but here's the key: the new rules that have been implemented did not go against any team. Every team managed to work within the rules, and it actually brought some teams together, especially at the end of the pack, and it brought one team forward, which was Red Bull last year. This year, without a huge change in the rules, we see that Mercedes caught them up. So the change of the rules from last year to this year did not handicap Red Bull, right?
Hmm.
We see that Mercedes managed to catch up to Red Bull and pass them, and now Mercedes is number one. If by the end of this year new rules are introduced to slow down Mercedes, that would be the worst thing that could happen. Because then again, we are basically saying that we're happy with mediocrity. We're really happy. We don't want excellence. And that's basically killing us. It's killing every facet of humanity, not only Americans, but everybody in the world. If we have just mediocre people, all right, people that can go up to 10, all right, there's certain people that can do this. I give the example for myself. I cannot play the violin. No matter how much I try, how many years I will try, I'm never going to be able to play the violin. All right, you have this lady Vanessa, whatever her name is. She's a famous violinist, something. I mean, she can play it, and well done to her. I'm not gonna try and bring her down to my level because I cannot do that. I
Right.
have my own areas, my own little niches that I'm okay, I'm good, I'm better than others. But there's always gonna be somebody that could very well be better than you, and somebody that could very well be less than you in that little niche that you have. We have so much to live for, and basically celebrating mediocrity is the worst thing that we can do for humanity, because then we become lazy. We accept that, well, half is okay, I don't care, and then half of the half, and then half of the half, and then we're going to be stupid completely. We're
And
not going to have anything to do.
well, and one of the things that is striking me as horribly inconsistent is that in terms of the drive for equal outcomes and fairness and equality and all of this kind of stuff that causes us to kind of as a culture punish success and try to drag people down into our level, rather than like in the old days you would see somebody who was hugely successful and that would become your mentor, and you would try very very hard to emulate them and to rise up to their level, and you admired them and you strove for that success. Nowadays, when we see someone who is successful, we envy them and we try to tear them down and bring them back down to our level rather than us rising up to theirs. And so we have that as a huge part of our culture and our mentality, but at the same time, we also celebrate competitiveness. I mean, competitive sports, and we have, all of our reality TV. Those are competition shows, and somebody wins, and we're cheering the winner. And so we have this dichotomy that I don't really understand, because we have our entertainment is all competitive, but then in our day-to-day lives, we're not so much anymore. Is that what I'm seeing?
The question that I have to ask you is how many of those shows you actually see excellence? For instance,
Well, the winner is the excellent person on that show. I mean, by the rules of the show, that person
is
who
it
wins the
though?
show is the best of the people on the show. He's the best chef, and he's the best restaurant guy, and he's the best whatever. I don't watch any of the reality shows, so I don't really have examples. But but it is competition. So what I'm saying is the competitive spirit, and we pay billions of dollars in competitive sports, that we watch competitions and we compete with one another in our little fantasy leagues and stuff like that. I mean, so the spirit of competition is still alive. And yet,
The question is, why don't we expand it towards other areas, like, for
towards
instance,
our own
schools?
personal life, our own
Yeah, and even our
personal
personal lives, absolutely.
strive for excellence, whatever, in our own personal lives, to strive to be better rather than to pull the other guy down. It doesn't make sense to me that there's all the obsession with competition stuff, and yet we're not supposed to compete and make people feel bad. Or like in kids sports, you get participation trophies and stuff.
And
Right.
here's
You
here's
ain't
the
doing
interesting
anything
part.
for it.
Here's the interesting part. You do have these shows, for instance, X Factor, or the one with Gordon Ramsay. They do the cooking,
Top
or
Chef and whatever all that stuff is.
yeah,
Yeah.
Top Chef, or The Biggest Loser, where they compete and they're trying to lose weight, which is great for them, right? Awesome.
Right.
Which reminds me, I need to lose a little bit, but that's a different story. I'm not going into any show. Um, but at the same time, you actually have shows that show you the opposite. Meaning, in my view, competition is something that moves us forward, right? And the healthy competition. Okay, we competed, I tried my best, I lost, I won, great, I'm going to try again, and so on and so forth. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what those shows depict, right? There's normal people that nobody heard them, they got their shot, and now one of them is the top chef and manages to open a new restaurant and materialize a dream,
Right.
or the best cupcakes, or
Whatever.
cupcakes. Yes. So at the same time, you flip the channel and you look the Honey Boo Barf, Honey Boo Boo.
Is that still on?
Ah.
All right. I don't care if it's on, but what better example of dumbing people down? To
Right.
see what?
She's celebrating her stupidity.
Exactly. And we are happy. We are happy to consume this particular show.
Right.
What is that show offering me? Is this a show that you see excellence that you can take home with you and say, you know what? Those are good ideas. I could implement them in my school teaching or the teaching of my kids. Does that kid actually show respect to anybody? No. Is that kid a spoiled brat? Hell yeah. So what am I going to take out of that show? Are the parents guilty of allowing that child to become like this because the child was not born like that? Come on. So what am I taking out of that? From Top Chef, I'm taking the competitiveness, and I'm happy that at least one of those people over there, because in those competitive shows, Top Chef and so on and so forth, it's not always that the number one wins. You know, number two, number three, number four, they're all looked after. Take it, for instance,
Well, and like
what was
American
it, the X
Idol
Factor?
and American Idol and
Yeah, like
Dancing with
American
Stars and
Idol,
all
right?
that. But there's a winner, there's a loser, there's competition. You're trying to be the best and of
Exactly.
whatever it is that you're competing in. Even those whole
So what?
dating bachelor shows, there's a winner, there's a loser. And
So what
everyone
are
wants to be the
we
winner. Yeah.
what are we getting out of Honey Boo Boo? Right? What
Watching a
is
train wreck?
I must admit,
exactly?
I've never
Watch.
saw Honey Boo Boo show. Maybe
I
that's a
haven't
good
I
either.
thing.
watched one show and it was enough. I think
No,
it was enough.
but you know what, Nikos? That makes you the Honey Boo Boo expert of this broadcast. Proud of
Yes,
yourself
don't
now?
watch it.
Proud of
That's my
yourself now?
expertise.
That's
Yes.
Yeah.
'Cause I only know by name and what other people say of it.
right. I've
I
seen
can't put
pictures
back
of the
an
little
opinion.
girl and her mother.
So you
Well,
know
to
more than
me,
I do.
I'm all
Oh,
right.
great.
Whatever the mother wants to do with her daughter, it's her prerogative. Good for her, right?
But she's making money
What?
because she's famous, and
Fine,
and
fine. But here's the problem. Whatever the little kid wants to do, that's her problem as well. Here's the problem. You just said it. She's making money,
mm-hmm.
right? Because some uh, some channel decided to say, all right, well, this might be a good thing to just put it on TV, and people decided to watch it and find it entertaining.
And if people are
What
finding it
is
entertaining,
entertaining?
somebody is emulating it, and somebody's going, "I'm going to be like just like Honey Boo Boo,"
Exactly.
because I think that's really cool, and I don't need to be smart about stuff because the Honey Boo Boo people are stupid, and being stupid is now cool. And
Exactly.
it's like,
So
yeah,
uh, w- these people are making money because our standards have lowered, right? Our standards have lowered, and now we accept a mediocre person, and totally unacceptable behavior. In my view, again, I will say that, in my view, totally unacceptable behavior both by the child and by the mother. And I'm not trying to preach here how one should raise their kid, right? It's their prerogative. I'm not a liberal. I'm not going to ask you to pay for my $9 a month contraception, and I'm not going to tell you that because I passed all the expenditures to everybody and their premiums that Obamacare has saved $483 million last year alone just for contraception. But what I am going to say is, in my personal view, First Amendment, before you start screaming, in my personal view, this is not something that we as a country should aspire to. This is not something that we should celebrate. We should celebrate something which is better, something that makes a difference. Top Chef, American Idol. Yeah, there's a lot of money involved in that. Fine, but there is a winner. You reward talent there. There is excellence. What do you see in the particular lady? What do you see in the Kardashian sisters? They're just two normal girls. One of them has big boobs, the other one has big butt. Big deal, all right? What do we get out of those shows? Nothing. And this is the dumbing down of America. People are starting to accept mediocrity as if it is excellence.
well, and
And by
we're
doing
letting
that,
people make excuses for it and come up with reasons for
exactly,
lack of
exactly.
success. And we see this in the school systems. Anytime you say, we've been pouring money into the school systems for the last 30 years, and we haven't been improving our test scores. We haven't been improving our outcomes. You school people have said that if we give you more money, then you'll make our kids smarter. And we've given you more money, and you haven't made our kids smarter.
Right.
So we've
Hmm.
held up our end of the deal, and you haven't held up your end of the deal. And they keep making excuses like, the parents are bad, or there's so much more for kids to learn these days, and the world has changed, and whatever excuses they come up with, um, and they're all inadequate. The main thing is, it's the people who are making the excuses for the continuation of lack of performance. When you fail at something, you're not supposed to just make excuses for your failure. If you failed, you need to understand why you failed and then correct it and change it.
Exactly.
Right.
And in the regular old business world, if I'm trying to sell something and I don't make the sale, I can complain that it's because my product was priced too high, or the product was a bad product, or whatever it is, but the real answer is I was outsold and I did something wrong and I can fix it. Whereas instead of blaming other people, and in the school system, and also if I continue to fail, I lose my job.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And in most companies, there's a certain turnover of personnel. Some companies, even on purpose, they will grade all of their employees. They will fire the bottom 10% every single year. 10% of their employees get fired for
Crazy.
non-performance, no matter what their performance was. If they were in the bottom 10%, they're gone.
Wow.
Yeah, there are successful companies that have done that. Now, most successful companies don't have to do that, but they do fire and get rid of their non-performers, or they counsel and make changes for their non-performers. They move them to a different department. They find a way to make them better performers. But we don't do that in our education system. And because our education system has this culture of the teachers are always right, they can never be fired, anyone who criticizes teachers just doesn't understand. And if you want to improve the schools, you need to give them more money. But the thing is, the money doesn't actually go to the teachers. If you talk to any real teachers and say, hey, did you realize that you're getting twice as much money per pupil now as you did 10 years ago? They'll say, wait a minute, I've been in this classroom for 10 years. I've got the same damn desks. I can't even afford a new desk. What do you mean I'm getting twice as much money as I did 10 years ago? There was more money flowing through to the classroom 10 years ago. Now, but there's more money flowing into the education system now. It's just
Mm-hmm.
stopping at the top. It's not making it into the classrooms, and it's not making it to the teachers, and it's certainly not making it to the students and to their education. Um, but because the powerful interests at the top have absolute motivation to keep the system the way it is, because they're profiting from it.
Right.
Absolutely.
They have no reason to change. They
Right.
like it the way it is.
They're the
Even though
ones who are
all
driving the
scores are going
acceptance
down,
of
they like it.
mediocrity. What?
Even though all test scores are going down, they don't care about the test scores. They're
No.
doing what's in their best interest.
Right. And as long as they can get us to accept mediocrity, they will continue making money. And that's what's happened. And so we as a culture and we as parents and neighbors, oh well, kids these days, there's too many distractions. They've got too many different things going on. It's so much harder to learn, or whatever pile of excuses we can make.
No, it's not. It's not harder to learn.
No, it's not.
The
It's
kids
crap.
have exactly the same brains. Probably they're smarter now than when I was growing up. People look at Greece and they go like, blah blah blah. All right. When I went for my master's degree in England, we were actually, and this is really funny for me to say this, but we were actually doing fractions on a master's degree.
What?
Okay, fractions, additions with fractions and all that stuff.
Now
One
what,
of
really?
the units. Yeah, fractions, 1/2 plus 3/4, that kind of thing. I did that early high
That's,
school.
yeah. Or middle school.
So we were just three people at the back of the classroom. It was just the Greek and the two Chinese, two guys from Hong Kong. We were just sitting there, just twiddling our thumbs, because we could not believe that this is the level, a master's level class. It's not. We learn a hell of a lot of things. Yeah, okay, algebra is difficult, fine, but you can
Algebra
learn
is
it. I mean,
high school.
I'm just saying, all right? Algebra is difficult, fine, I accept that. But you know what? So is walking. Yet you are here, you are walking. So is talking. People know more than one languages. We're being taught all these things.
It's not supposed
And
to be
what
easy
we,
to get a master's degree.
well, actually it is, but it's not
It's not
that
supposed to
difficult.
be.
Well,
It depends on the person and what you're getting a master's in.
fair enough, but in my view, it was not supposed to be this way. And the fact that people are saying, well, our kids have much to learn. No, it's not that the kids have much to learn. The kids can actually learn a hell of a lot more than what we're trying to teach them. Uh, Ask any parent that homeschooled their kids how further ahead they are from the current curriculum.
Huge. I
They
mean, you
are.
can look at any. There was a comment, I don't know, a week ago or something. Somebody shared a story about I don't know, a 15-year-old who had just graduated from college, and the poster was saying, all I read was the headline that some 15-year-old had just graduated college, and in my head, I immediately assumed, I bet the kid was homeschooled. He
Mm-hmm.
was. The kid
Well,
was homeschooled because a 15-year-old from public school who was public schooled is not going to graduate college. That's just not going to happen. I mean, not going to be graduating college at the age of 15 if he was in public school at any point.
and granted, we might actually talking about the exception here, right? But in general, homeschool kids do get a better education than
Absolutely.
non-homeschool
Yes.
kids. And I'm not saying this to say that uh, we should all homeschool our kids, right? I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is that homeschool kids get proper attention to what they are being taught, and with that proper attention, you're actually you're actually stirring up all those creativity juices, all that question, all what we need to have in our younger generation, right? And for those that are listening, I'm going to give you the very easy example to relate to. Two words: Steve Jobs. Nothing else, right? From our generation, Steve Jobs was the best innovator that we could have. How many things did Steve Jobs um, do that affect our lives on a daily basis? Shall we say, and I'm talking as a parent right now, shall I say Pixar, the cartoons? How many times have we watched Toy Story? I probably know it by heart, right? And all these other movies. Shall we discuss the iPod? Shall we discuss the iPhone, which brought the Android and all the cell phone revolution? Now we all walk like zombies looking down, but that's a different story. It's all this innovation that came from one individual. Other people, like Steve Jobs, that made a difference. Mike Rowe, what's his name? Mike Holmes from Canada. He's for those that don't know it, he has a show. What is it? Mike Holmes Inspections. So basically, he's a contractor. That's all he knows, and he has this philosophy: if you got to do something, do it right the first time, and then you won't have to worry about it. And he used to be called in people's homes when the contractor or the builder did something that was not there, and he wouldn't be afraid to basically tear the whole place apart until he fixes it right. All right, and through that, he revitalized the whole apprenticeship and builder and contractor um, profession, if you like it, in Canada. At one point, he was voted the third most trustworthy person in Canada. And this is the excellence. My point is that Steve Jobs might have been a genius, right? Mike Holmes is also a genius in his own way. We don't have to all get this, oh, if I'm not a mathematician, I'm not a good one, or if I'm not a physician. No, we excel in our own little niches.
Right.
And that's where we have to chase. That's what we have to grab. Bill Gates, another example. And we're mentioning Bill Gates,
Oh, and by the way,
who
none of these
we
people
all
have college degrees. Just saying.
yeah, and also Bill Gates is a huge liberal. But
So was
the
Steve
problem
Jobs, wasn't he?
Yeah, so is Steve Jobs, but the problem is not a political one right now. The
No.
problem is a society problem. We need to have innovators. We need to have smart people coming out of the colleges. We need to challenge our kids, the young generation. What is going on? Put your mind to work.
Well, and one of the things that
That's
I
the problem.
noticed out of this Huffington Post article was in looking at the differences in the countries, the nations that are at the top of the list versus the nations that are in the middle and the bottom. Um, it's that the culture is supportive of learning. Finland and South Korea differ greatly in methods of teaching and learning, but between each other and everybody else. But they're both at the top because of a shared social belief in the importance of education and its underlying moral purpose. And you were touching on this with homeschooling and with some of the comments from Steve Jobs, the underlying moral purpose of education. And a homeschooled kid is going to have this innate understanding that education is not something you do at a school and then you can't wait to leave school because then education stops because you can stop learning. A homeschooled kid is going to understand that he's actually in school 24/7 because learning is his job. Because
Right.
when you're a kid, learning is your job, and then you go get another job where you can learn in that job so that you can get a better job. And that learning is what we do all day long, every day, for our entire lives until the moment you die. And Steve Jobs talked about that too, that you're always getting an education, you're always in school, you're always learning. And it doesn't have much to do with attending a school and getting a credential.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike Rowe does the same thing, and Mike Rowe, with the Dirty Jobs show that he used to have, he would go to places of business where the jobs were crap, and he would find, and sometimes literally, he would find these employees who were doing these horrible, horrible jobs, but they were proud of themselves. They were excelling at their job. They were
Mm-hmm.
learning
Absolutely.
how to do the best job they could, and they were happy, productive members of society, and they were making themselves better, and they were learning at every turn. And
And
that's
they was
what our
making good money too.
yeah, and that's what our culture used to be. We used to value that, and we used to reward that. And we need to get that back, because once you start thinking that education is something you get at school and religion is something you get at church, but when you're not at school and you're not at church, you're not learning and you're not being religious. Well, that's wrong,
Right.
because your relationship to God is 24/7. Your relationship to learning is 24/7.
Right.
And we've removed the moral purpose, I think, of education, and it's really hurt us as a culture. And and if you remove the moral purpose of education, then you have the inability to answer kids right when they ask the question, what is this for? What am I ever going to need algebra for? Because we all asked it. Didn't we all at some point
I didn't
ask our
ask that about
parents?
algebra, but I did ask it a lot in English classes.
Yeah, really. Okay, English. You were big. I for some reason I always liked English because it was fascinating to read different stories and stuff. And and I loved math and science too. But the things I didn't think I really needed was geometry because I was no good at it. It was like, what do I even care about parallelograms? I do not care. Because I
And
didn't,
for
you know.
me, it wasn't.
Well,
I didn't mind reading the writing that bothered me. I didn't want to. But that's just
let
me.
me put it to you this way. All right, a lot of people, unless they go into the positive sciences, chemistry, physics, and all that, the mathematics and all that stuff, they could turn around and say, "Why the hell do I need chemistry? Why the hell do I need physics? Why the hell do I need to know what you know uh, that methane has one carbon, ethane has two carbons, propane three, and butane four? Why do I need to know all this?" Right?
Oh my God, I
Other than
just visualized those in my head as you were saying it.
all right, yeah, the little sneaks and
I'm
all
like
that
seeing
stuff
the
that you
C
used to
with
do.
the H on it. Yeah, I'm
Exactly.
visualizing the
So
carbon atoms. Yes.
other than kicking butt on trivia games and being the party animal and the show. Uh, Physics, for instance. I'll give you a very, very funny example and easy one. We had the 4th this month, right? For
Yeah,
November.
Okay,
May
right.
4th be with you.
Okay. Yeah, May 4th be with you, but you could easily turn it May 4th be, what is it? Mass times acceleration.
Right.
Newton's second law. And everybody would turn around and go like, "Oh, May the 4th be with you," and all that with a
And may the fourth be mass times acceleration. Yes, and
and then
and
you
some
turn
people
around
got
and
some people got that joke, and some people didn't. Yeah.
yeah, but here's the thing, you actually show another aspect of yourself. We all know that some people read 10 and some people read binary. That's
Right.
another nerd joke. So if you think that any knowledge you get is useless, you're wrong. You're gonna find uses for that knowledge. I truly believe that one of the worst subjects I ever took, sadly it was mandatory in high school, was psychology. Right? I had to cheat to pass that. Right? And it was a very elaborate scheme, which I became famous in school for doing that. But the point is that to this day, I do remember what I cheated on. Sadly, by just reading it and writing it, I memorized it. So it didn't do me any good to cheat. But I still remember certain things, and I do recall certain times in my life that some of that knowledge actually helped me make a better decision.
Right. And here's the
And
thing: you don't know what life is going to throw you. You don't know what's coming in the future. So when you're 15 years old, you don't know what you're going to need to know when you're 35. And what the span of time has taught us is that when you're 15, we need to teach you a little bit of everything so that you
Mhm.
can have a foundation on which to build. And so that whatever you decide to do when you're 35, you're going to have a firm foundation and you can get there from here. And you don't have to start from scratch. And that's the answer to the 15-year-old who's like, I'm going to be a chef. I don't ever need to know about, great, because
About algebra or
right.
about addition and subtraction.
And chefs need
So
to know
when
that. Chefs need to know that.
so
Chefs need to know
so
about
when he,
chemistry. Chefs need to know about physics. Chefs need to
so
know
when your
about
supplier
reading.
comes over and rips you off because you cannot calculate how much is 2%, then oh, I don't need that.
Or when you're changing a recipe to instead of feeding 4 people, you need to feed 12, and you can't do times 3, and you're
Well, you do
given
it 3 times.
right, you just do it 3 times. Right, there are so many things. Chef, as soon as I said chef, I'm like, that is a terrible example because a chef needs to know
Yeah, it needs to know a lot of
chemistry.
things.
They need to know chemistry, and they need to know physics, and they need to know a lot of stuff.
They need to
Um,
know conversions. What is a teaspoon? What is a
right,
tablespoon?
and most of the time they're
What
going to
is
be
a
running their own.
milliliter?
They're going to be running their own business, so they need to know marketing and sales, and they need to know vendor relationships, and they certainly need to know English, and they need to know how to write and how to read and how to interpret and how, and how to persuade. There's all this basic stuff. No matter what your career is, you're going to need it. It's going to benefit
Absolutely.
you in some way. And my parents were always, well, you need to learn it because you need to learn, most of all, what you need to learn at this point in your life is how to learn.
hmm Um, I know we are kind of like running out of time,
Uh-huh.
I
but
wasn't
that
gonna say
never
anything
stopped
this
us.
time.
That never stopped us. I would like to stay on a couple of things that we have in the notes. First of all, the Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. I'm just gonna talk
It's
about this.
Ayn Rand, apparently. That's what I know. I've
Well,
never read anything about Ayn,
Ayn or
Ayn,
whatever, it's
Ayn,
A-Y-N.
Ayn.
Pronounce it the way you like.
Russian, maybe?
Right? I never said that I'm very good at pronunciations. Clearly, I do have an accent.
You're Greek,
Um,
whatever.
yeah, it's all Greek to me. That's one. The second one relates to the dumbing down of America, and we need to discuss about Pledge of Allegiance, the prayer,
Mm.
national anthem, and the flag that goes on into schools. And let's close up with what we can do. What can we do to help this, right? How can we combat this? Because this is a slowly coming in phenomenon, and we need to make sure that we resist that phenomenon, because right now it's getting to the point that it's noticeable, right?
Yeah.
So the lady whose name is AYN Rand wrote a really nice book, in my view, again, The Fountainhead. It's about what we're talking right now. It's mediocrity and excellence, right? There's for those that have not read it, a spoiler a little bit. There is an architect that is not following the norm. He's actually building buildings the way he sees things, the way the buildings fit everywhere. And he has an enemy who actually read socialistic, Marxistic, whatever philosophies, and his sole point is basically to dumb down everybody, to award mediocrity and condemn excellence. A very small expert on the book is when Mr. Tui, who is the guy that is against the main character, he basically says that he wants the main protagonist, Howard Rourke, he wants him in jail, locked, stopped, strapped, and alive. He will obey, he will take orders, he will take all the orders. And he hates him so desperately, he wants him alive, broken in spirit, rather than dead. That's how you hit excellence. And a little bit later, the book actually gives you the idea that Tui has no talents of his own. He's the one that fights the main character, right? So he makes himself excellent by grinding down his followers, and his tactics frequently evolve those of Joseph Stalin, the dictator of Russia, and he also preaches selflessness. He disguises his message through, oh, we have to be selfish, we have to joke about ourselves, we have to laugh about everything. And even that, laughing about everything, you don't recognize a good joke. Look at our shows, for instance. You have a show that comes out, for instance, what is it? The guy with the one with Sheldon?
Big Bang Theory.
All right, Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, I don't know that one.
Listen to it. It has some funny parts, granted, right? I like some of those parts. But every once in a while, you hear this ha 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 in the background. Really? I want you to tell me when I should laugh?
Right. Oh, yeah, because there's a laugh track, and they're cueing you in.
All right. So this is yet another example how we're not celebrating a good joke, that's excellence, versus we're laughing at everything.
True.
Okay. So again, that is one of the things that we have been doing, and we also see this every day among some of the leftist commenters, the envy of the success of others. Rather than being inspired and motivated and equal or surpass the successful, they focus on tearing them down, bringing them down to their own mediocrity, social justice, fairness. We saved $483 million for women's contraception. Guess how much your premium went up to pay for that 480 something? But we saved all that money because Sandra needs her $9 a month contraceptives.
Yeah.
So that is the mediocrity. This is the trap that we should not fall into. And there's ways to get out of it. There's ways to reject all this push towards this mediocrity. I just brought a couple of examples from Ayn Rand's book. Of course, the book is huge. I have it on audio tape, and it took me a few weeks to listen to it through my commute. That was the third time that I listened to it. It's really nice. I mean, it does make you think what mediocrity is and how it combats excellence and how it tries to bring everybody down into a dumb society. And then once you have a dumb society, then that's a society that one can rule easily.
Right.
All right. So, because I've been talking way too much, Leslie, you want to pick up the flag or the national anthem? This is another thing that
Well,
is happening in our schools.
these were some stories that I hadn't really heard too much, and it's actually one story. I guess it's Goshen Community College,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and it's a Mennonite college, and the Mennonites are a religious sect kind of related to the Amish. It's a branch off of the Amish, but they get exempt from the draft and stuff because they are conscientious objectors to all things war related. And they have this college and decided that they were not going to allow the national anthem to be played before sports events because the national anthem is about war. And okay, I get it, but what they don't really understand is, and I'm sure they do understand, but what they're overlooking in their drive to be anti-war and to not celebrate war is that actually the war and the battle, it was from the perspective of Francis Scott Key, who was on board a British vessel because he had been captured, and he was waiting to see whether his side, the Americans, prevailed in the battle or not. He was not fighting the battle. He was actually, the song is written from the perspective of somebody observing this horrific battle that could have meant the end of the nation, and it's about the love that he had for the nation and the importance of the nation and how beautiful and wonderful it was that when dawn broke and our flag was still waving and the flag was still there, and the celebrating, how great God is for allowing the United States of America to prevail through that battle. But instead of really understanding and taking the opportunity to explain that to their students and to explain the anthem of this nation that grants, or the anthem of the nation that provides the freedom for the Mennonites to
Yeah, right?
to worship the way they choose, which they weren't allowed to do elsewhere, which is why they came here. And so this nation that welcomes them and provides them with not only an opportunity to worship as they choose, but an opportunity to succeed wildly economically and to have this great college, and they can celebrate this nation. They can celebrate this nation and explain the context of the battles that helped the nation to survive and to sustain, because the war, 1812, that battle, that could have meant the end of our nation, our very young nation at the time. But they could have taken the time and put forth the effort to explain a very bellicose national anthem to their students. But instead, they took the lazy way out and said, oh, yeah, the song has battle-type imagery in it, and we don't like war, so we're not going to allow it. That's just lazy. And it doesn't enhance the education of their students. They didn't take the time or the care to teach their students and to teach the world, who doesn't understand Mennonites and their interest. They just took the mediocre, lazy, not passive. There's nothing bad about being pacifist. They just took the lazy way out and said, no, we're just going to ban the song because it talks about war and stuff. Well, it's just so shallow. And I'm sad for the students of Goshen College. And the thing is, I think most of the articles about this were lazily written articles by conservatives who were all, they're banning our national anthem. They're not real Americans. Not what you don't. You're in your drive to be opposed to the Mennonites and opposed to the ban of the national anthem, and in your drive to be, more patriotic than everybody else. You're missing the point too, because you're missing the opportunity to really engage in a very deep understanding of what the song is about and what was going on in America at the time Francis Scott Key wrote it, and to even appreciate the fact that the words were put to a British drinking song. that everybody had problems singing because the range is so high, and to really look at the irony of all of that. And there's just a huge story that can be told about our national anthem that if you really, really understand the depth of meaning of what was going on at the time the guy was writing it and what was in his heart when he was writing this poem, you can't really listen to the song without crying, and I never can. Every time I hear the song, I tear up. If you take the time to educate yourself, and then because you're so passionate about it, you want to educate others, like I'm doing right here.
Yeah, you're sure
Thank you.
educating me.
Because I'm passionate about it.
Thank you, Leslie.
And it does take time and effort and energy, but it's sharing the excellence and bringing everybody along with you rather than taking that mediocre way, the thoughtless way of we're going to ban the song because it's about war. Oh, you banned the national anthem, you're a bad college. That's the honey boo booization of the story.
Yep, exactly.
And we do that. In every single story that I read, I didn't look all that closely at all of the links about that story, but in the ones that I saw, they really they didn't take the opportunity that I just took to really say, oh my gosh, what a missed opportunity the college had. And what a missed opportunity the authors of any of the stories about it. Because we could have really taken this one particular event and made it an educational, informative thing. But we don't. Because we want to buzz feed our stories. We want to, 12 things you didn't know about Goshen College, and then banning the anthem, and here's a gif of a cat. Click on my website and get me some advertising revenue. And that's what it's all about.
If you don't share this picture, no.
You hate puppies, right? It's hard, and it takes effort to learn this stuff. It shouldn't.
And we're coming back to exactly what Steve Jobs said. He had an awesome speech. I would highly encourage everybody that's listening or will be listening to this podcast to just go on YouTube and listen to Steve Jobs' address. He was honored by a college. I don't remember which college. They gave him some title, I don't remember, and he addressed the young men and women that were just coming out on this world. He talked about his cancer, he talked about his time with Apple, he talked about when he was fired from Apple, and how he started, how he looked at the world and all that stuff. And his famous words are, stay hungry, stay foolish. Question everything. Stay hungry. Have the need to ask why. Why is this going on? What's going on here? Why did the Mennonites do this? And then you realize that it's not that basically they disrespect the national anthem. It's because they don't understand it. They chose not to understand it.
Cut in, but that speech you were just speaking of, that was at Stanford University.
Oh, at Stanford. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Did he attend Stanford? And Stanford's out there in California, which is where he was. But didn't he attend Stanford at some point for like a minute and a half or something? I don't remember.
I think he did, and he left.
Right. It's like he failed out of Stanford or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not 100% sure though. But
a commencement speech at 2005.
There you go. I got the link from somewhere. I don't remember how. It was some random thing, and I had it on my speakers, and I listened to it, and I was astounded because Steve Jobs got it. All right, he understood the meaning. You fall down, you get up.
Mm-hmm.
You don't surrender. You don't settle for mediocrity. You don't settle for less. You always push forward. Just like the Meet the Robertsons, just like that little guy was saying. Keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that have kids, know exactly which movie I'm talking about.
It's a Disney movie. Idea.
Meet the Robertsons. Keep moving forward. That's the idea. I'm saying too many Disney movies and stuff.
I used to
They,
be in Disney movies when my niece and nephews was younger. I think the
I can
latest
I can assure
Disney movie I saw was Toy Story 3.
I
Was
can
that
assure
Disney or
you
Pixar?
there is no age for Disney movies. You can watch them anytime. The good ones.
Oh,
There's some bad ones.
I love The Lion King. I absolutely love The Lion King.
I only like the first one. The other two wasn't so good.
There's only one Lion King. The others don't matter. It's just
Yeah, I agree, Leslie.
only one Lion King. Saw it in theaters like 3, 4 times. That's the only time I've really, well, okay, not the only time I've seen a movie multiple times. I did that with Lord of the Rings too. But I I made my
Yes.
nephew go with me to the theater to see The Lion King multiple times. He got bored, but he was like, Aunt Leslie, do we have to go again? Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
But of
But
course.
and we've sort of touched on this a little bit, that the battle against mediocrity is one of the core battles that we're all fighting every day. And we don't necessarily put the name to it that that's the battle we're fighting, but if you look to most of the arguments that we have, most of the efforts that we're making to make the country better, they do kind of come back to and boil down to a battle against mediocrity. And I get tired of fighting against stuff. Most of the message of the Conservative Party tends to be against things that the liberals are doing, and we're fighting against mediocrity, and we're
Right.
saying, and we're the party of no, and we're always talking about the things we don't like, and that becomes so. It's negative, and it's a bummer, and it's hard to get excited about and enthusiastic about anything because we're the party of no. And I think back to, I think it was, and here's where I'm going to bring a horror movie into it. I think it was Nightmare on Elm Street. So, yes,
Hmm.
I'm very old. So, Nightmare on Elm Street, when it first came out. And I think it was near the end of that movie when the nightmare was explaining that he gets his power from all the kids who believe in him. And he was making the point that whatever you think about and believe in grows and gets more power. So if you ignore the bad guy, he diminishes in power. And if you focus on the good guy, then the good guy gains power and gains strength and gets bigger. And a lot of different philosophers will kind of share the same message, including Deepak Chopra, and I believe it's also in the Dhammapada somewhere, that what you pay attention to is what grows and gains power in your life. And so I try to remind myself that I need to pay attention to and focus on the good things, because I want more of the good things and I want less of the bad things. So if I kind of turn away from the bad things and turn towards the good things, and that means that we need to stop complaining about Honey Boo Boo and stop complaining about the Kardashians and stop complaining about all of the idiots and start paying attention to and focusing on and bringing attention to Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Mike Rowe, Captain America, the good TV shows, the good radio shows, the positive forces, and bring those more into life, because we have the power to change the culture, right? I mean, we talk about how
Absolutely.
politics is stupid and politics is bad, and we only have a limited opportunity to change politics, and that's like by our votes. But we have all day every day to change the culture, because the culture's us. And if we focus on and brag about and talk about and promote the good stuff, because there are good movies, there are good songs, there are good musicians, there are good TV shows, there are good scientists. Let's discover good positive scientists and promote their discoveries and make it cool to be a scientist. Let's make them our rock stars.
Yeah, right now it's not.
Yeah. Nobody knows who any of the scientists are other than Neil deGrasse Tyson, because he's on TV. Well,
And I don't even know who that is.
right, because he's only famous to some people, but he's not famous to like everybody. But it used to be in the culture, people knew who the scientists were,
Right.
and we paid more attention. Now, scientists have never been rock stars. You've always had the glamorous Hollywood people, but I think we can make our own lives better, and we can take steps towards erasing the mediocrity in our culture and promoting the excellence and really shining a light on it. And and I know that it makes me happier when I spend my day thinking of talking about and bragging about good, happy stuff, and not just puppies, although puppies, kitties are pretty cute. I do like sharing those stories. But, and it's really pretty neat when, like, you'll share a story about some fabulous, fascinating, cool discovery or something, and then you get lots of people plus oneing it, and lots of people resharing it, and lots of people commenting on it, and the comments are all, oh my god, this is so cool, and oh, this is cool, and do you know what I just also discovered? And it's all a very positive, fun discovery kind of thing, kind of connections that you're making with people. And those are far more interesting than when you share yet another story about how horrible big government is, and how something bad happened, and then we can just complain about, yeah, Hillary's horrible, and Secretary of State's terrible, and John Kerry's horrible. That's just kind of bleh. You know
Right.
what I'm
That's
saying?
why I try not to keep. I try to have my stream diversified whenever I post up to Google Plus, because I don't
Hmm.
want my stream to be all bad news, all sad. Whenever somebody see my name, if a frown instantly come on their face because of what the government is doing, whatever I post. I want them to be happy sometimes. Well, I want them to be happy all the time, but
Hmm.
nobody's happy all the time.
No, and if they are, be suspicious. Be very
Right.
suspicious.
There's something wrong. Dun, dun,
Right.
dun.
Actually, I think we've all known those people that are happy all the time, and I just want to slap them. Just smack.
But I try to, mix it up, try to be positive,
Hmm.
and give them a reason to actually follow me. So when I do put a little politics, even if they're on the other side, maybe they'll be more open because I brought them in with, let's say, video games, or I brought them in with firearms.
Right. You've got the credibility that they know that what you post is of interest, it's of value, and it makes them, reading what you post makes them a better person in some way, because you've made them smile, or you've taught them something, or you've interested them in some way. So when you post something that's of a different topic, you've gained the credibility in their eyes, so they're going to read it and they might learn, as long as you're posting it from the perspective of, this horrible thing happened and here's what we can do about it, or this great thing happened, isn't it awesome when the free market wins? Instead of it all being
Doom and gloom.
negative, complaining, bitching, whining, and moaning. I get so tired of that. But celebrating the excellence, and celebrating, not just talking about how stupid John Kerry is. And I'm really picking on John Kerry today. Sorry about that. But not just talking about how stupid John Kerry is, but talking about how brilliant. Oh, wow, this is sad. I can't think of anybody that's really brilliant in politics.
There's not that many politicians that are brilliant. Usually the brilliant people don't enter politics. They actually enter the private sector. So
Yeah. But if somebody did something brilliant that was political, to promote that and say, this political thing happened and really is a great idea and a great positive thing, and let's do more of that because it's excellent. Let's do more excellent things. And I think that's how we can fight the mediocrity, because otherwise you just drive by schools and you go, oh my God, you're all idiots, go away.
Yep.
I don't know.
I believe we have to start with the parents as far as trying to fix the school system. The school system is too huge for just one or two people to take on. That's just too big. But what we could do is talk to our brothers, talk to our sisters, talk to our friends who have children, and get them to focus more on their child. If they, because part of the responsibility of having a child is to raise that child up,
Yep.
not to send the child to school and have the school do all the work. That's a recipe for failure.
And that's true. We do need to help everyone we know understand that education happens everywhere, not just the school. Yes, as a parent, your responsibility is to send your kid to school, but you have to be teaching the child all the time. Going to school, they learn school things, but when they're home with you, they're learning home things. And you're right, helping the adults and the parents that you know to understand that a little bit more, because you know what, society wants to take the job of education away from parents,
Right, and it
because that
originally
way,
belonged to parents.
right, because that way, if all the education is handled at school and don't worry about it, mom and dad, we'll take care of it, then whatever is happening to the kid at school, the kid is becoming a little, drone, and they are controlled by the education system rather than being an independent student who gets some education from the education system but becomes an independent individual in their own right.
Right.
So yeah, we do have to focus on, we can't change the education system from the top. It can only be changed from the bottom up, and it has to be through a change in the perspective of the parents and the
Right.
kids and the kids.
Because when enough
Absolutely.
parents get ready to do something about it, then they can, I don't want to say force, but I guess that's the only way you can change the bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm.
You have
It's
to
forced.
change it from somewhere, since you can't do it from the top. You don't have no other choice but to do it from the bottom. It
Right.
has to be done.
Yeah. And a lot of changes can be done from the bottom up. A lot of success can come that way. I think so.
Yeah, look what happened in
Well,
2010. We did good because we came from the bottom, the grassroots.
What are you talking about?
the
How
the
just the
elections.
normal person
Yeah,
just came up and we threw out a bunch of the incumbents.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. In small races, and we changed state parties, and it did come from the bottom up, and we'll do that again. We will keep doing that again. Bottom up. And on Van Jones, who talked about top down, bottom up, inside out, the heart part. And yeah, that's Van Jones. But bottom up is really the best way to start things. And that's where each of us has a role to play.
exactly.
Very cool.
Don't settle for mediocrity. Keep asking. Stay hungry, stay foolish, as Steve Jobs used to say.
Right.
Well, and now you're making me hungry because you talk about food, and that's making me hungry.
All right. Well,
And
in that
for
case,
and for a 30-minute overrun of our scheduled time, I think we need to take the opportunity now to conclude our show. What say you?
Yeah, I can go for that because
yes.
I have my ice cream and Pop-Tart ready.
Ooh,
Priorities, right?
dipping
I don't
Pop-Tarts
care
in
about the
ice cream.
show. My ice
Awesome.
cream.
It's time for ice cream. Well, that does conclude our show then. Thank you very much, folks out there, for joining CU Talks. You can find this podcast online afterwards at conservativeunion.net, probably tomorrow morning sometime. Please do subscribe to the show at the website or on iTunes or Stitcher or YouTube, and it'll automatically be delivered to you with no effort required on your part. You can join us next week, Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern, for an hour and more of conversation with real people from real places in America, not DC and not the media. Thank you.